So let me get this straight. Stephen Colbert's late night show is ending, and somehow the next career move is co-writing a Lord of the Rings movie. Not a parody, not a sketch, not a Comic-Con bit, an actual, real, official Lord of the Rings movie. Because apparently Warner Brothers looked at the current state of Hollywood, looked at franchise fatigue, looked at the slow motion corpse parade of beloved IP and said, you know what Middle-earth really needs? A politically radioactive late-night comedian, Tom Bombadil, a framing device, and Sam's daughter uncovering a mystery nobody asked for. That's the plan. And the craziest part? This isn't even rumor mill nonsense. This is real. Peter Jackson announced it. Warner Brothers announced it. Stephen Colbert announced it. And fans all over the internet basically had the exact same reaction. This has to be a joke. But no, it's not a joke. It's Hollywood, which somehow is worse. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you. You already know the drill. And if you're new here, this is The Critical Nerd, where we follow the entertainment industry as it repeatedly steps on the same rake and then acts shocked when it gets smacked in the face. So if you enjoy box office autopsies, franchise meltdowns, and Hollywood making decisions that sound like they were generated by a cursed corporate focus group, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because today we need to talk about one of the strangest fantasy announcements in a really long time. Stephen Colbert is co-writing a new Lord of the Rings movie. And no, the problem is not just that it's Stephen Colbert. The problem is that this entire thing feels like a giant warning sign for where Middle-earth is headed next. Here's what we officially know. Warner Brothers and Peter Jackson announced a new live-action Middle-earth movie tentatively titled The Lord of the Rings: Shadow of the Past. Stephen Colbert is co-writing it with his son, Peter McGee, and franchise veteran Philippa Boyens. And the movie is being positioned as the film that comes after The Hunt for Gollum. Now, on paper, that might sound interesting, because Colbert says the idea is built around 6 early chapters from the Fellowship of the Ring that Peter Jackson skipped the first time around. That means Tom Bombadil, the Old Forest, the Barrow Downs, all that weird, dreamy, mythic, folklore-heavy material that Jackson left out way back in 2001. And I already know what some Tolkien fans are thinking. Okay, maybe there's something there? Sure, maybe. But here's where the alarm bells start going off, because this is not just a straightforward adaptation of those missing chapters. Oh no, we can't do that. Modern Hollywood can never just walk in a straight line. They have to do cartwheels off a cliff. The movie uses a framing device set 14 years after Frodo's passing, where Sam, Merry, and Pippin retrace the first steps of their old adventure. Meanwhile, Sam's daughter Eleanor discovers a long-buried secret about how the War of the Ring was very nearly lost before it even began. So right away, this thing is trying to be a sequel, a prequel, a sidequel, a nostalgia trip, a lore excavation, and a mystery box all at once. That's not confidence, that's creative taxidermy. It's Hollywood taking chapters Jackson cut for pacing, stitching them to a new mystery involving Eleanor, and hoping the audience mistakes that Frankenstein monster for storytelling. Now let's be fair just for a second. Just a wee second. Stephen Colbert is not some random guy who has never heard of Tolkien. He's a real superfan. He loves the stuff. He's talked about it for years. He knows the lore. He knows the books. He has the shelf. He has the whole Middle-earth fanboy starter pack. This is fine. But being a superfan and being the right guy to write a movie are not the same thing. That's the first big problem. Hollywood keeps acting like fandom itself is a qualification. It isn't. Knowing every corner of a universe does not magically mean you could write a film for that universe. If that were true, every subreddit moderator would be running a major studio by now. And when people looked at Colbert's actual writing resume outside of late-night TV, that's where the skepticism went into overdrive. Because this is not a guy known for writing epic fantasy films. This is not a guy known for writing big-screen fantasy adventures. This is not even a guy known for writing blockbuster movies, period. So the reaction online was basically, in what universe does a late night host with minimal feature writing credentials get handed Middle Earth? And the answer, of course, is this universe. The dumbest timeline. Then you add the second problem. Stephen Colbert is not just a celebrity, he's an extremely polarizing celebrity. That doesn't mean every criticism is automatically fair, but it does mean the baggage comes with him. And once you attach somebody like that to a franchise like Lord of the Rings, the conversation stops being about story and starts being about trust. Do audiences trust this person not to drag modern baggage into timeless myth? Do fans trust the studio not to use Tolkien as a delivery system for current year nonsense? Do people trust Hollywood in 2026 with any of this at all? That is where the backlash comes from. Not just, I don't like Colbert, but I do not trust the people making this to leave Middle Earth alone. And honestly, after Rings of Power, after the bloated Hobbit trilogy, after War of the Rohirrim face planning, can you really blame them? Now here's the part where a lot of fans get especially nervous. The official synopsis puts a giant spotlight on Eleanor, Sam's daughter, discovering the buried secret that drives the mystery. And immediately people started saying, oh no, here we go again. Because we just watched a version of this formula with the War of the Rohirrim. Take a smaller or lightly sketched character, build a larger framing mechanism around them, use pre-existing lore as a launching pad, then sell it as faithful while also expanding it into something new. Well, that begs the question, how did that work out for them? Well, not great. And that's the fear here. Not because Eleanor exists, not because female characters can't lead stories. That's not the issue. The issue is the pattern. When the marketing pitch starts sounding like, don't worry, we're totally honoring the source material, while the actual structure screams, we are using the source material as a scaffolding for our own modern invention, fans have every reason to side-eye it. Because that's how you end up with something that feels less like Tolkien and more like fan fiction wearing Tolkien's clothes. And then there's Tom Bombadil. Yes, Tom Bombadil, the great white whale of live-action Middle-earth. One of the most beloved and most divisive pieces of the Fellowship. Some fans adore him, some think he would derail the movie completely. And Peter Jackson cut him the first time for a reason. Because Bombadil is not just a character, he's a tone problem if you don't handle him perfectly. He's strange, he's whimsical, he's mythic, he's spiritually loaded. He's outside the normal rhythm of the main quest. And if your answer to how do we bring him in is use a sequel framing device and mystery box structure with Sam's daughter, then congratulations. You may have already proved why Jackson left him out. This is bigger than Colbert. This is bigger than Bombadil. This is bigger than one bad sounding movie pitch. This is about Hollywood refusing to leave anything remain finished. Lord of the Rings was a completed cinematic achievement. Lightning in a bottle. A trilogy that felt definitive. And ever since, the machine has been trying to reopen the tomb. First with The Hobbit, which had good moments but got stretched thinner than butter over too much bread. Then with Rings of Power, which burned through mountains of money while dividing fans and draining goodwill. Then War of the Rohirrim, which landed with all the force of a paper airplane made of legal paperwork. Then The Hunt for Gollum gets announced. And now this. It's the same disease everywhere. Nothing can simply end. Everything must become a content ecosystem. Every gap must be filled. Every side road must become a streaming series, a spin-off, an intraquel, or a new take. This is how franchises stop feeling special. Not when people get angry, when people get tired. And that might be the most important part of this whole story, because anger still means people care. Apathy? Well, apathy is terminal. And a whole lot of reaction to this announcement wasn't rage, it was exhaustion. Really? This is what we're doing now? Who asked for this? I just don't care anymore. That's where Star Wars ended up. And Hollywood seems absolutely determined to drag Lord of the Rings to the exact same place. Now let's get to the part that makes this whole thing even more absurd. Tolkien himself attempted a sequel to Lord of the Rings. Then he abandoned it. Why? Because he found it depressing. He found it unworthy. He found it wasn't worth doing. That's the part modern franchise culture never seems to understand. Sometimes the reason there isn't more story is because the creator knew where to stop. That restraint is part of the art. The finality is part of the power. But Hollywood sees finality as unused inventory. So now you've got this bizarre situation where Tolkien walked away from the idea of extending the story after the fall of Sauron. And decades later, a late-night comedian is helping Warner Brothers do exactly that. You cannot write a better metaphor for modern entertainment if you tried. And maybe that's the angle that bothers me the most. Not just that the project sounds shaky, not just that the fit feels wrong, not just that the timing is hilarious with Colbert's show ending and suddenly he's free this summer. It's that this all feels so corporate. Like a rights play, like a brand extension, like a room full of executives asking, what recognizable Middle-earth content do we still have access to? Not, what is the best story to tell? But, what pieces are left on the board? And that is how great mythology gets reduced into IP mulch. Now, to be completely fair, could this still work? Technically, yeah, it could. Philippa Boyens is involved. That matters. Peter Jackson is involved. That matters. Colbert genuinely loves Tolkien. That matters too. So no, I'm not saying it is literally impossible for this thing to surprise people. Hollywood does occasionally trip and accidentally make something decent. But the reason people are skeptical is because the current batting average is terrible. Studios keep telling fans, relax, we love the source material. Then they hand them a product that feels reverse engineered by brand managers. Studios keep saying, we're expanding the world. And what audiences hear is, we're monetizing your nostalgia. Studios keep saying, this is for the fans. And the fans keep looking at the final product like, no, this is for your shareholders. So yes, maybe Shadow of the Past beats the odds. But based on the premise, the structure, the timing, the baggage, the franchise context, and the current state of Hollywood, fans have earned their skepticism. At the end of the day, this is why the Stephen Colbert announcement hit such a nerve. It's not just because people dislike Colbert. It's not just because people are tired of politics. It's not just because Eleanor is in the setup. It's not just because of Tom Bombadil. It's because the whole thing feels like a symptom of an industry that no longer knows how to leave greatness alone. A symptom of executives mistaking recognition for demand. A symptom of studios confusing fandom with free labor. A symptom of Hollywood believing every classic must eventually be converted into a content pipeline. And maybe this movie turns out fine. Maybe. I'm not ruling out miracles, but right now, this looks less like a bold new chapter for Middle-earth and more like another example of Hollywood walking up to a masterpiece with a shovel. If Tolkien thought a sequel wasn't worth doing, maybe the correct response wasn't, get Stephen Colbert on the phone. There it is. So let me know in the comments, is this an overreaction? Could Colbert actually pull this off? Or is this another case of Hollywood taking something legendary and stretching it until it snaps? If you enjoyed this video, if you would, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with somebody who still remembers when Lord of the Rings felt like an event instead of a content strategy. And as always, keep your expectations low and your receipts high. I'm the Critical Nerd. I'll see you in the next one.